Immortal John Hancock here, and often I get asked, how do you deal with your backlog of video games? And I wanted to talk to my channel, and I wanted to just kind of elaborate on how I deal with that, and maybe some tips for yourself on dealing with your own backlog of games. And it just happens, we as collectors, we collect more than what we can play, and it can bother people, and it doesn't bother me. It does affect what games I pursue because time is precious to me. For those that don't know, I'm an elementary school teacher, and I do YouTube on the side, and it gives me very little time outside of my family. A good example today is Saturday, and on Saturdays, I spend family time. I had a date with my wife. I went to basketball with my daughter. My daughter had 2 basketball games today. It was 2 hours. And, in between that, I had some downtime. And, I did play some video games today. And so it was nice. But, with my collection being as large as it is, that means, essentially, with thousands of games, I could play a different game every day for decades. And, that's the truth of the matter is, a lot of my games are collectible. They aren't games you're going to play every day. And a lot of them are, a lot of this collection is for preservation, for a museum, for something I want to, display and share with others about games long gone. And so, I wanted to talk about kind of what I do and how I deal with it. And so, here we go. So, I play nearly every day a video game. It may not be a long time. I've really been into my Xbox One S, and part of that is because it's a great media player, and it's a great game system all in one. I watched my first 4K movie on it, Blade Runner 2049, and awesome. And but I play on everything. Play on my Switch. The Nintendo Switch and the Xbox One S is currently what I'm playing the most on. There's some great games on my PlayStation 4 Pro. I just, haven't got around to, gaming as much as I want on it. But I am a huge PlayStation fan, and, just haven't got to it. So anyways, I stick with games until they get bored. That's the challenge is these epic long games, these RPGs that are like 100 hours long. The truth of the matter is, with my schedule, there's no way that I'm going to get to like 99% of those. Occasionally there'll be a game that really hooks me in and I'll play it. But, it's tough. It's tough with my schedule. I'm being honest, It's just, I just don't have the time. I like a nice arcade experience. That's why classic games are so awesome. That's why, Nintendo, Atari, Sega, that era of games I can play and enjoy, and it's not this big venture and investment of time into one game. I don't have the time for it, I'm a very busy person, and what little extra time I do, I want to share with you. And you want to talk about video games, and that also cuts into my game time. So anyways, I still play my favorites over and over again. I love Shadow the Beast, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I play those all the time. Rygar Arcade, even the Sega Master System version for some reason. I like those type of games. Those Rastan, Super R-Type. Those type of classics where I can play, experience a level or two, and be done. I die. Choplifter. Those are the type of games I love to play. That arcade experience, and get some game time in and be done. And if I don't get through the whole game, big deal. And so I don't make a big point of it. And I play games for enjoyment. I don't play games for competition. And, it stays fun that way for me. Kind of like this channel. It's not my job. I do because I love it and it's a hobby. And I think that's why I still have a smile on my face. So, I still enjoy playing many new games. In fact, I have a stack of modern games over there in the corner of my game room where I do play modern games. Today the game was Destiny 2, and I have a love and hate relationship with that game, and I'll explain that in a minute. I still get annoyed with things that new games do, but there is some great experiences with new games that I think are great. I do love the cinematic aspect of modern gaming and how they can, with the graphics that they have now, they can combine like a movie experience with an actual video game. I think that's cool. There's pros and cons to that. I think sometimes I want to skip a cinema scene or it's not necessary. That's what I love about the indie scene, is that they can show story, snapshot, a picture, boom, done, let's play a game. One thing good example of Destiny 2 is like, I don't need a ship flying every intermission before I do the next part of the level. That's silly. I hate that. I'm not even flying the ship. Why are you showing a ship flying? I can't stand that. That's a part of the game that stuff grates on my last nerve, but the game is still fun to play. It's not for everybody. I got it on sale for like 20 something bucks. I'm gonna get some time into it and then move on to the next thing. I'm not gonna get the expansions. I'm gonna play the basic game. I'm gonna have fun. There's a couple of my buddies that I teach with, one in particular that has it, so I might play with him a bit. But that's it, and then I'm gonna move on. And that's kind of how I look at games. That a good game is a game that is fun and that you can play it, you can pick up and play it, and you can return to a game later and it's still fun. And some people are really intense players. They'll master a game 100%. They'll go through, they'll find every secret, every nook, every cranny. I'm not that person. I don't have the time. Kudos to people that can do that. One of my favorite Atari 2600 games, Berserk. Play that game all the time. Why? Because I can take the game off the shelf, I can put it into a console. I don't need anything extra. I play it. I can play within 10 minutes, get some enjoyment out of it, and be done. And that's to me like a type of game that I like to play. And I'm really happy to see that there's a whole bunch of new like indie style games and games that have been around for a while that cater to that type of gaming, and that you can play them 10-15 minutes and be done, or come back to them. You don't have to like this epic long grind slog, hours and hours of gameplay at a time. Good example, Monster Hunter just came out, new Monster Hunter World, and I think it's all. It looks like a great game, but that's a game I'll never play because it's there's hour plus boss battles in that. I can't do that. It's cool for people that can do it, not me, and that's the type of game that I'll never add to my backlog, But I do like the the modern shooters. I have to admit, I really like Fortnite. I got Fortnite and PUBG. Part of the reason why I don't like it's not that I don't like PUBG. I like playing it, but I think playing it on a standard Xbox One is not the best experience. I think probably the PC is the best way to go with this, just because it just kind of chugs on the Xbox One. It's just not, to me, it's not a great gaming experience. Fortnite, on the other hand, a lot of fun. The Battle Royale is what I'm really pertaining to be in particular. That's a lot of fun. It's a little gimmicky with its like tier system, but for free, awesome game. And it's a nice casual kind of 100 versus each other shooter. Great, love that game. So I've been playing that a little bit, and yeah. So those are just some things. I don't like. The other things about my backlog, if a game has like a bad menu system or navigation system, it just drives me nuts. And so those are the type of games that I have a hard time going back to. I like a simple menu where I can choose different parts of a game and play that game. I hate having to watch cinema after cinema, or sub-screen or sub-menu, or if I'm a character and I have to walk around on something that should have been just a simple menu. Oh, that bugs me. So that's the other thing that will limit like some games and stuff that have that built into them. You know, in a way, I have to say the new Call of Duty's like that. I had a lot of fun with it over Christmas break. That's kind of how my typical pattern is. I'll get a new game and I'll play it for my time off, and then I might not return to it and just move on to something else. And so I'm being pretty transparent here. This is just kind of my game patterns that I play. I'll play a modern game, or I'll play a game. I'll play it for a season, or a couple weeks, and then I'll move on to something else. And that's typically how I roll. And then sometimes I'll be like in a modern game phase, and then I'll move into a classic game phase. And then for like a couple months, I'll be on that particular console. I'll play a lot of games from that console, and then I'll move on to something else. I usually don't bounce from console to console to console. I'll usually stick with a console for a bit, a week, a month, a couple months, and then kind of move on to something else. And then it usually rotates back. I was on a Commodore VIC-20 kick a couple weeks ago, and got to experience some great games, going back to playing some of my favorites on a multi-cart. Before then, it was Atari 8-bit. I just got, a couple months ago, I got the Ultimate 8-bit cart for that, and so I was playing a lot of the games on that. And so that's just kind of typically how I deal with my backlog, is that I go from one type of game, and I'll play a lot of those games, and then I'll move on to a different genre or a different console, and that's just how I roll. And so I'm curious, how do you deal with your backlog? For me, it's one game at a time, and I don't worry about it. My backlog is always going to be huge, and that's not why I collect. And I do play. I play almost every day, something. I try to, or if I'm not playing something, I'm trying to look something up. Oh, that's interesting about that. I didn't know that about that game. I'm constantly trying to educate myself on a particular game, or particular genre, or hidden secret, or a story. I love all of the above. I love everything about game history. Far from knowing everything, and just constantly trying to learn more and more about it. So anyways, thank you so much for people around the world who have tuned in as I march towards 50,000 subs. And so I'm just blown away by the comments, the praise. This channel has gone to be a lot larger than I ever could have possibly imagined. And my ultimate goal is, I would like to break that 100,000 subs. I've had that in my mind. I want to do it. And, it's part of it is just setting a goal and saying, I'm going to do that. Just like I'm going to have a museum. I'm going to have a museum, and nobody's going to tell me that I can't have a museum. Because, I feel like I have a collection worthy of a museum. And one of these days it's going to happen. It's just going to take some time, and some time to really focus on that. So anyways, long ramble there. Thank you so much for all the wonderful praises and comments. Just keep them coming. I try to read as many as I can. And folks are wonderful and beautiful. And still doing 3 videos a week. One on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. This is the Immortal John Hancock. You take care.